Mr. Speaker, will you please call the House to order?
The House will come to order. In the absence of clergy, let us pause for a moment of silence. Visitors are invited to join the members in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A quorum being present, the clerk will read the Journal of Monday, April 11th. Mr. Morelli.
Mr. Speaker, I move to dispense with the further reading of the Journal of Monday, April 11th, and that the same stand approved.
Without objection, so ordered. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, colleagues. I will give you an outline of our schedule in just a moment, but before I begin that, April 12th is our date, and a number of important events have occurred on this day in history. I thought I might mention a few. For instance, on this day in 1862 at 4:30 a.m., the first shot was fired in the Battle of Fort Sumter, South Carolina. The incident marked the start of the American Civil War. On this day in 1892, the first mechanical lever voting machine, known as the Myers voting machine, was used for the first time in a town election in Lockport, New York. And the machine was invented in Rochester, New York by Jacob H. Myers. And on this day in 1945, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt suffered a massive stroke and died at the age of 63 at the Little White House in Warm Springs, Georgia. That same day, Vice President Harry S. Truman was sworn in as our nation's 33rd president. A day many people still remember. Members have on their desks a main calendar. After any introductions and housekeeping, Mr. Speaker, we will take up a number of bills associated with the crime victims package, and we'll take up a number of other bills from the calendar. There will be a number of committee meetings off the floor, so if you are a member of any of the following committees, please be advised that we will be making announcements from the desk. I think we'll begin very soon with the Cities Committee. We will follow, in no particular order, committees on banks, housing, tourism, and education. So if you're on any of those committees, cities, banks, housing, tourism, and education, please pay special attention to announcements from the floor on those committee meetings. So with that as a general outline, Mr. Speaker, if there's any housekeeping, I know there are a number of introductions, this would be the time to take them up.
Introductions, Mr. Morelli. Mr. Santa Barbara, for the purposes of an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to interrupt the proceedings for the purposes of an introduction. Today, I'm very pleased to introduce the varsity cheerleading team from Mohonasen High School in my hometown of Rotterdam. These talented local athletes recently made our area very proud by bringing home their second national cheerleading title. They competed in the Reach the Beach High School Cheerleading Championship in Ocean City, Maryland on February 27th and secured a first-place victory in the Varsity Advanced Sanctioned Division. 1 week later, on March 5th, the team traveled to Syracuse to compete in the inaugural New York State Public High School Athletic Association state-level cheerleading championship, having advanced after winning the D2 large division as sectional championships. At the statewide competition, the team successfully advanced to the final championship round, where they secured a 5th place ranking overall in the D2 large division, once again making us all very proud back home. In addition to the team's ranking, Mohonasen High School senior Amy Demento was recognized individually and was presented the award for Best Sportsmanship. I'd like to offer my congratulations to this team on winning numerous local titles and winning at the national level. I'd also like to thank their coaches joining them today, Jess Rapp, Jess Kubal, and Jabbar Cancer, who are also joining us here today, and thank them for their efforts on leading this team to the national stage. These athletes have shown great dedication and the ability to work together as a team to reach an incredible goal. We're very pleased to have recognized them with an assembly resolution passed just last week. But today, I'm very proud to have these young athletes joining us here today in the Assembly Chamber. Mr. Speaker, if you would welcome them to the Chamber and extend to them all the cordialities of the House.
Certainly, Mr. Santa Barbara. On behalf of Mr. Santa Barbara, the Speaker, and all the members, we welcome you here to the New York State Assembly. We extend to you the privileges of the floor. We hope that you will enjoy today's proceedings, and we commend you on the fine athletic work that you have done this past season. We hope it leads to great college careers, whatever you may choose to do. Thank you so very much, and always feel free to come back and visit us. Thank you. Mr. Santa Barbara, for the purposes of another introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to interrupt again for another introduction. Today in the chamber, I'm also pleased to introduce members of NYSED. That's the New York State Industry for the Disabled, as well as some nonprofit and direct care organizations and colleges from around the state that are here participating in their second annual CREATE program. And CREATE is cultivating resources for employment with assistive technology. I want to thank NYSED for sponsoring this CREATE Symposium today, which highlights a program that's helping our student engineers become more engaged in our community. NYSED sponsors an academic challenge to encourage assistive technology innovation for New Yorkers with disabilities in order to remove barriers from the workplace. I would like to introduce NYSED's President and CEO, Ron Romano, who is here joining us, Brian Bateman, who is the Marketing Manager for NYSED and also oversees the CREATE program. The program connects undergraduate and graduate engineers from colleges and universities within New York State together with rehabilitation agencies in the community. Working and participating today are Livingston, Wyoming ARC, Schenectady ARC, LifeSpire, Goodwill of Greater New York and Northern New Jersey, and the schools joining them from my home county of Schenectady County, Union College, Manhattan College, City College of New York, Alfred State College. For CREATE, the Union College Mechanical Engineering team that's here completed its project in the fall of 2015, helping Pine Ridge workers perform a packaging job more efficiently. The Electrical and Computer Engineering Department developed two projects on display at today's symposium for the Maple Ridge at Schenectady ARC. These inventions will help with tasks at the center's greenhouse program. I want to congratulate Schenectady ARC and Union College for completing these amazing projects. As a civil engineer, I was very excited to see all the work that was done to help our disabled community. As many of you know, I also have a son diagnosed with autism. I know that some of these inventions are going to help people like him in the future take on jobs and open up opportunities for all New Yorkers. I'm very proud of the organizations that have participated in CREATE across my district, and I'm so very happy to have them joining us here in the chamber today. Mr. Speaker, if you would welcome them to the chamber and extend to them all the cordialities of the House.
Certainly, again, on behalf of Mr. Santa Barbara, the Speaker, and all the members, we welcome you here to the New York State Assembly. We commend you on the work that you're doing to help individuals through your engineering careers and programs that are serving individuals with specific needs. We extend to you the privileges of the floor. The collaboration that you show is what the future, we hope, holds for all of us to improve our way of life. Thank you so very much, and continue that work. Mr. McDonald for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to interrupt our proceedings here today. We have actually two special groups I'm going to introduce at once here. As you may know or may not know, today is the 200th anniversary of the incorporation of the City of Troy. And Mayor Patrick Madden, the 60th mayor of the City of Troy, is here today as part of that celebration. And he, myself, Assemblymember McLaughlin, will be sharing a resolution shortly commemorating this event. It is interesting that when reading over the citation that we're presenting to them, it was when City of Troy was first incorporated, the elected officials were appointed at that time by the governor, and that's why they're here today to thank the state for incorporating them. But they were appointed to one-year terms, which I found very interesting, as we sometimes it a little bit gruesome about 2-year terms, I dread the day if you had to run annually for elected office. Mayor Madden just joined as mayor in January 1st this past year, knows the city very well, is off to a great start, and I know will carry forward great success for the city of Troy, the College City. Also with us today are 3 members of the Colonel Albert Pauling Committee, and I'd ask them to stand. First is Adam Sanzone, Gary Pavlik, and Ken Zalewski. Now, what's so special about the Colonel Albert Pauling Committee is that Colonel Albert Pauling was the first mayor of the city of Troy. So we have the group representing number 1, and we have number 60 here. What's great about this committee is that they had this vision and dream to build a bronze statue of Colonel Albert Pauling, and it was Adam's dream when he was in high school. They went and embarked on a 2.5 to 3 year fundraising effort, raising over $70,000 to take this figment of an idea and make it into a bronze statue, which, by the way, we will be unveiling this Friday, April 15th, in the city of Troy. So I'd ask you to welcome all the mayor, the committee, to the House. They're here to say thank you for incorporating them 200 years ago, and I'm sure you'll pass on some kind words as well.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Mr. McLaughlin on the same subject.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and just want to reiterate what our colleague, Mr. McDonald, just said about our guests. Mayor Madden is here, number 60, as John said, and he is off to a good start. Had a tough beginning, not of his own doing, but he was in office about 2 hours or so, and we had a massive water main break up there in Troy. But he handled it very, very well. It disrupted not only Troy, but Waterford and Half Moon, and just kind of pointed out what we talk about here with our aging infrastructure. But the mayor took control of the situation, did a good job getting things back on track. And he's off to a good start working with the city council in a bipartisan way, so we're happy to see that bipartisanship in Troy, just as Assembly Member McDonald and I work in a bipartisan way, the Mick brothers up in Rensselaer County, I guess. But and then joined by Adam Sanzone, Ken Zalewski, and Gary Pavlik, who it is pretty amazing to watch what happened with that statue, because at the beginning we weren't sure if it was going to happen, but they stuck with it, and now here we are just a couple days away from unveiling the statue and all that goes with that. So congratulations to them. They did a terrific job, and we are happy to have them here and happy to celebrate the bicentennial of the great city of Troy, and then soon to be the unveiling of the statue of the first mayor. And as John said, boy, I'm glad we don't have to run every single year. So we're thankful for that. But please welcome to them to the chamber and give them the cordialities of the House. Thank you.
Certainly. On behalf of Mr. McLaughlin and Mr. McDonald, we welcome you here to the New York State Assembly. We extend to you the privileges of the floor. Mr. Mayor and committee, we really appreciate the work that you're doing together to memorialize that great city across the Hudson from us. We are appreciative of that work. We hope you will always be and will always come back to this Capitol and enjoy our proceedings. Thank you very much. Mr. Sepulveda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to interrupt the proceedings. As evidenced by the Taiwan Relations Act, the United States has very close ties and economic ties to the island of Taiwan. In 2015, in bilateral trade, we exchanged $66.6 billion. In this state and in this wonderful country, many Taiwanese Americans call this their home. Today, I have the honor of introducing the first Taiwanese ambassador, female ambassador, visiting us from the city, Ambassador Lily Shi. As we know, Taiwan is a relatively new democracy, but it's an example for other emerging democracies throughout the world. Since 1996, they've had 6 elections, and I'm happy to say that recently the new president-elect is a woman, Dr. Tsai Ing-wen. In fact, if we look at their elected body, It's something that we envy because Taiwan has 38% of women that are elected to represent that island. So we can learn from that island, certainly. Today with us also is two other members from the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office, Ron Liu, who is no stranger to this body, and Gloria Shi, who also has participated with us in our trips to Taiwan. I recently went to Taiwan, and I can tell everyone, as I said last year, it's one of the greatest experiences I have. The infrastructure in that island, the people there are so warm and friendly, and one thing that I say I envy, and I'm sure that Member Godfrey would agree with me, is their universal health care system, which is something that we hope that one day we can attain in this country. So please, Mr. Speaker, please afford the cordialities of the House to Ambassador Xu and everyone here that's from the Taipei Economic Cultural Center. And let's make them welcome, and I hope that other of my colleagues will speak. I also want to mention that my colleague, Neely Rosick, asked me to speak on her behalf because she couldn't be here, but she also asked that you offer the cordialities of the House.
Certainly. Mr. Crespo, just a minute, Mr. Crespo. We need a little bit less conversation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to rise to extend a gracious welcome to Ambassador Xi and to Ronnie and the rest of the team for their visit today. Assemblyman Sepulveda outlined very well so many of the great contributions and examples that the people of Taiwan continue. Is something that I think Assemblyman Sepulveda mentioned, and that is women in power, women in leadership, and you know, a lot of us are hoping that in this country we get to see that as well. But more importantly, I wanted to point out the friendship and the cooperation that the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office has extended to my community in the Bronx. Probably the Bronx has the smallest population of Taiwanese Americans, but that has not stopped them from saying presente in the Latino community, the African American community of the South Bronx, and have always been gracious enough to support us in efforts that strengthen our cultural ties in our neighborhoods. And as you know, whether it's donations for school supplies for children in our neighborhoods or no shortage of just opportunities where we've shared in resources and in support to make sure that we join our neighborhoods, join our cultures, and just extend a friendly hand amongst one another. And I think that speaks to who you are, that speaks to your culture, and that speaks to your leadership. And I welcome you to the chamber, and thank you also for that friendship to the community that I represent in the Bronx.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pichardo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to interrupt the proceedings. I also want to join my voice with my colleagues from the Southeast and from the East, Assemblymember Sepulveda and Assemblymember Crespo, in welcoming the Taiwanese delegation here. Pretty much everything that needed to be said has been said. The government is a friend to us, not only here in the state of New York, but in the Bronx, and they've always extended a warm and a welcome hand. I truly believe in this idea that government can be and should be a force for good, and they have demonstrated it time and time and time again. And I am proud and honored to join with my colleagues in welcoming them here and being part of this, part of our proceedings. And I join my voice to make sure and let them know that we can extend the cordialities of the House to this delegation, to the Taiwanese delegation. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Mr. Ramos.
Speaker, I also rise to join my colleagues to welcome the ambassador, to welcome Ronnie Liu, who is, as Mr. Sepulveda said, is no stranger to our assembly. I also went to Taiwan, and what struck me the most was to find a country of people who are such lovers of freedom based on the same ideals that our country here was built on. My family is from Puerto Rico, who comes from a history of people who also had to stand up to affirm their identity and to create an inclusive government and a democracy. And I salute you and your people, Ambassador, for everything that you have done and for sharing your culture and with us. We are presently working with the Embassy of Taiwan to try and work out reciprocal agreements so that we can recognize their driver's licenses here in New York State, something that would help actually tourism here. For tourists to be able to come here and drive all over New York freely with their licenses is something that benefits New Yorkers, as well as a reciprocal agreement in Taiwan. I hope my colleagues join with us to make this happen. And again, I extend my welcome to the ambassador and Ronnie Lu. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Blake, same subject.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to briefly say thank you to all that has happened. It's great to see Madam Ambassador Ronnie, who is a very dear friend. We've done a lot of work together in the Bronx. They've been very supportive, as Assemblyman Crespo mentioned, as it relates to school supplies for our young people who consistently needed that help and support. And it's always great just to see women in leadership who have stood up and continue to empower our community. So on behalf of all of us in the South and West Bronx, we just want to say thank you and appreciate all that you do for our communities.
Ms. Davila.
Hello. I would just like to echo my colleague's sentiment. Thank you, Speaker, for allowing me to just echo those sentiments. I want to thank the ambassador. It's always good to say her last name is She, right? So that's very sentimental thing, right? To have in the entire nation have a woman that's on top. And also, I would like to thank Ron Liu and Gloria Shi as well for all that you do. And I just would like for you to give the courtesy of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Certainly. Mr. Weprin on the same subject.
In welcoming the Ambassador Xi as well as Ronnie Liu and the Taiwanese delegation. I was proud when I was in the New York City Council to lead a delegation to Taiwan at the time. I think it was about 13 years ago. It coincided with the opening of Taipei 101, which was the tallest building in Taiwan at the time. And I was amazed when I went there some 13 years ago, the amount of development that had taken place. I'm sure at this point it's far exceeded that, but I have a large Taiwanese constituency as well in the City Council as well as in the Assembly. I've had a staff member when I was in the City Council as well as in the Assembly throughout who was born in Taiwan, Yen Shia Chow, who's been very active with the Taiwanese American community in Queens, and it's a great pleasure for me to welcome the Taiwanese delegation.
Mr. Godfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to join in welcoming the delegation from Taiwan for a couple of reasons. One, on behalf of my daughter-in-law, who is from Taiwan. She hails from Kaohsiung. And secondly, just to congratulate Taiwan on the fact that for 20 years it has had, and you know I'm going to mention this, a single-payer healthcare system that we would do well to adopt. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Lepardo.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to express my welcome to the Taiwanese ambassador. The Legislative Women's Caucus, along with Assemblywoman Rosick, hosted a luncheon earlier. I just wanted to point out to the members that we learned in her remarks that 38% of the Taiwanese parliament made up of women. You've got us by quite a few. We are only 25% here in the New York State Legislature, but we aspire to do better. We're very pleased that you're with us here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bashak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to rise today to welcome the Taiwanese delegation, the ambassador, Xi, and our good friend Ronnie Liu. I'm just really excited to see the delegation again this year. I had a great opportunity to meet the delegation last year with Assemblymember Sepulveda and other members of the team from the Bronx. I just want to say that I'm really excited to see the transition in Taiwan with the great step of women leadership rising and increasing in rank. I'm excited about the new president being the first woman president in Taiwan, as well as 38% women in leadership in the parliament. So I'm really excited. I certainly look forward to Taiwan having a closer partnership in trades with the state of New York. I learned that New York State is number 15. We would like to increase in that number, maybe be number 1 or so. But again, keep up the good work. Thank you so much. Thank you for setting an example and serving as a model in a lot of the things that you do here in the state of New York. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Mr. Rea.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be brief. I just wanted to welcome the ambassador and Ronnie Lou, who I've developed a good, solid relationship with. And I look forward to visiting your country in the very near future, Ambassador. Thank you.
Certainly, on behalf of Mr. Sepulveda, Mr. Crespo, Mr. Pichardo, Mr. Ramos, Mr. Blake, Mr. Vila, Mr. Weprin, Mr. Gottfried, Ms. Lupardo, Ms. Bachat, and Mr. Rea, the Speaker, and everyone else in the New York State Assembly. We welcome you here to the New York State Assembly. This is the People's House. We extend to you the privileges of the floor. We are so pleased that you've had the opportunity to come and join us, and hope that all of us get a chance to come and visit your great country. Thank you so very much. Mr. Wright, for the purposes of an introduction.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. You know, April is Financial Capability Month here in the state of New York and across the nation, and I am pleased to have members and students from an organization called World of Money here in the Capitol with us today, led by a woman by the name of Sabrina Lamb. It's of tremendous importance that our young people are given the proper tools to build secure futures for themselves and their families. World of Money puts these tools into the hands of the next generation, and we commend this great work and welcome them here today. And just, if I can just be able to introduce the folks from World of Money, we have, as stated, Sabrina Lamb, Christopher Saunders, Elijah Saunders, Michelle Grant, Isaiah Grant, Gabrielle Grant, Joseph Edwards, and Adelisa Edwards, both from a member of Assembly Heineman's district, Rachel Gavan and Rebecca Gavan from Marcos Crespo's district, but Rachel Gavan happens to be the goddaughter of Assemblymember Blake. Tangela Ambrose from Mr. Mosley's district, James Ambrose, Madison Ambrose. Sierra Rivera from Mr. Semanowitz's district. Garrett Collins from Lady Assemblymember Robinson's district. April Horton, Giselle McCraw from Speaker Hasty's district. Eden Pichardo from Mark Jonai's district, Brianna Rivers, Liara Hill, and Becky Ianello from Assemblymember Fahey's district, and Ms. Hill from Assemblymember Goldfeder's district. Mr. Speaker, if you can give them your usual welcome and thank them for their service and thanking them for their visit today in the state's capital.
Certainly. Mr. Blake, on the same subject.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a personal appreciation for Chairman Wright for doing the resolution, but a personal connection and responsibility for my goddaughter who's here, Rebecca Gavan, who was born on George Washington's birthday 8 years ago. So she has a presidential connection already, Mr. Speaker, and their incredible leadership, they're being recognized not just here, but they're going to be also recognized in D.C. By the president because of their work. So I'm a very proud godfather today, and thank you for allowing us the purpose of this introduction.
Certainly. Ms. Robinson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to acknowledge this fine group. With Ms. Sabrina Lamb, who I met at a workshop maybe about a year or two ago, and she was talking about the world of money. So I certainly would like to acknowledge her and thank her for coming up here to participate in one of our caucus weekends. In addition to that, I believe that these young people will be the financial planners for us. Since they're learning about the world of money, I think it's so important because many of us perhaps didn't have the same opportunity that they're taking advantage of at this particular time. So I just want to commend Ms. Lamb and those that have traveled with them and these young people who are going to be ready for the future. And so I just want to say thank you and to Assemblymember Wright for extending an invitation on this as we celebrate Financial Literacy Month. So congratulations to all of you and to Garrett Collins. It so happens when I spoke with him earlier, I said, where do you live? He told me the block that he lived on. I said, well, you live around the corner from me. So welcome.
Certainly. On behalf of Mr. Wright, Mr. Blake, Ms. Robinson, the Speaker, and all the members, we welcome both the students and your advisors here to the New York State Assembly. We extend to you the privileges of the floor. We hope that this particular day will have been both informative and fun, and hope that you will come back and see us later, maybe before the budget is done next year. We might need a little advice. Thank you so very much. Mr. McDonald.
Mr. Speaker, quite quickly, if you look around the room, both upstairs in the gallery and over here, we have many pharmacy students from throughout the state here with pharmacists as well. Today is Pharmacy Day here at the Capitol. We'd ask the students to please stand up with their white jackets on. There they go, beautiful. So anyways, they're here to advocate our agenda here in pharmacy as well. The Assembly has always been a great partner and friend. If you could just extend them a welcome, it would be appreciated.
Certainly, on behalf of Mr. McDonald, our pharmacists, we welcome these pharmacists here to the New York State Assembly, extend to you the privileges of the floor, and hope that you have had a great day here in Albany. We saw you in the halls lobbying and expressing your needs and desires to your legislators, which is a great public purpose. Thank you so very much. Always feel welcome to come back and join us. Thank you. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Before we go to resolutions, I would like to encourage members of the Cities Committee. Encourage is the nice way of saying it. Members of the Cities Committee in the Speaker's Conference Room. Mr. Benedetto is prepared to go out and conduct that meeting, sir.
Cities Committee, Speaker's Conference Room. Follow Mr. Benedetto. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, sir. If we go to page 3 of the main calendar, begin with resolutions, beginning with Assembly Resolution 1198 by Ms. Lepardo. And I understand that the last resolution on our list by Mr. Santa Barbara, he wishes to be heard.
Clerk will read.
Resolution number 1198, Ms. Lepardo. Legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim April 10th through the 16th, 2016, as Crime Victims' Rights Week in the state of New York in conjunction with the observance of National Crime Victims' Rights Week.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Resolution number 1212, Mr. Magnarelli. Legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim April 17th through the 23rd, 2016 as Abusive Head Trauma Shaken Baby Syndrome Awareness Week in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Resolution number 1213, Mrs. Barrett. Legislative resolution recognizing April 2016 as National School Library Month.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye.